Hello everyone, it's Bavar from PTC or Port Terra Conglomerate here. We're here with our latest video to give you an overview of the ever-faithful Drake Vulture, aka the one Drake ship that the UEE actually loves. Throughout this video, we will be covering the ship's lore, its overall features, specifications, and how PTC likes to use the ship. As a bonus, we will also try and draw some links to real-world vehicles that we feel fulfill a similar role to how PTC likes to use the Vulture. The Vulture was not a ship born from a single lightning bolt of inspiration, or a Eureka-grade light bulb. Rather, it was a ship forged by the hammer and anvil of necessity on the forge of opportunity. Unlike most ships, the Vulture has an unconventional and winding history before it was even sold. Its birth wasn't clean or clinical like most purpose-designed craft, but it rather started off as a prototype testbed for the AS-1 Cutlass called the VLT-3. Two major events also conspired to the Vulture's success, with the Empire Slipper incident making the case for dedicated salvaging ships over more pre-existing ad hoc solutions, or the usage of rescue ships prevalent at the time, and additionally the General Dog's Bodies incident, which showed the UEE and the people within it that with the right ship, the right crew, and just a little bit of luck, anyone could strike it rich. The Vertical Launch Testbed 3 had been built to gather data pertaining to the AS-1's VTOL performance and to refine its design in this regard. The first major event that led to the birth of the Vulture as a dedicated salvage craft was the Empire Slipper incident. On the 9th of August 2895, the Terror flag flying freighter, the Empire Slipper, pretty much managed to hit the malfunction jackpot, whilst carrying a consignment of rare art and gemstones. To start off with, gateway terminals received incorrect coordinate overlays. This caused the Slipper's navigational officer to mischart their proposed QT course smack bang into the middle of a dense irradiated asteroid belt near the corona danger zone of a red giant. Asteroid belts being, well, asteroid belts, the freighter was effectively shotgunned by debris which then disabled the aging freighter's shield generators. Needless to say, it then got worse, as without their shields, the crew had now received a fatal dose of radiation. Due to the rapid nature of the ship's cascading malfunctions post-missed jump, the Empire Slipper was effectively left adrift, having been unable to presumably log a distress call, with its precise whereabouts unknown. Naturally, with the sort of cargo the ship was carrying, a proverbial rant-a-dung storm was kicked up, with whole loads of media interest. A large search was subsequently undertaken in the hope of recovering the cargo. 8 months later, a UEEN vessel spotted the naval slipper adrift in the irradiated debris belt, thus ending the conspiracy theories that the freighter had been hijacked by pirates. After the initial jubilation at the ship's detection had worn off, it swiftly became clear that the ship was effectively impossible to recover, as it was inaccessible to any specialist rescue craft with sufficient protection to survive the operation due to the prevailing environmental hazards. MISC, in desperation, offered a reward of 10 million credits to anyone who was able to retrieve the flight data recorder. This was to serve two goals, one being subordinate to the other. The first goal was to explain what had happened and subsequently to aid in insurance claims. Just when MISC needed a hero the most, Drake came to the rescue, swaggering onto the scene reeking of cigar smoke, whiskey and industrial lubricant. Of course Drake wasn't doing this out of pure altruism. They wanted that reward as a cash injection, the cargo itself to sell, and the bragging rights over one of the major ship manufacturers for PR. With these ignoble goals in mind, a crack team was assembled on Borea to, somehow or other, cobble together a craft to tackle this unenviable task. As it was a Drake prototype, and therefore free, the Cutlass AS-1 VLT-3 frame was chosen. After ripping out all the test equipment, it swiftly became a specialized salvaging platform. Heavy shield generators pretty much filled the prototype's cargo bay, and a pair of manipulators were bolted onto the front of the craft's arms, which were one of the secrets to its success, I should say, as they negated the need for EVA retrieval, which was not quite on the cards considering the whole asteroid belt and, waves of radiation that the star was throwing off. The Frankenship was, to put it mildly, an overshielded, underpowered, mongrel bastard of a thing. Small and agile enough to navigate the debris field whilst keeping its crew of 2 alive. At least that's what they told the crew. A bit over a year after the freighter had originally gone walkabout, recovery operations began out of a cobbled-together modular station on the edge of the radiation field. The operation took 36 trips in total, with the flight recorders being the first items to be recovered and the cargo following. Drake claimed and received the rights to recover the valuable cargo, and to their credit, promptly delivered the recovered flight recorders to MISC. However, the promised 10 million credits did not materialize, as Drake executives were ultimately dragged into court when it may have possibly been discovered that they had covertly, gained access to, copied, and then put on a data on a vessel before passing the recorders on to MISC. Drake, struggling with various scandals relating to their lack of customer background checks, and the increasing usage of Cutlass Blacks and Caterpillars in piracy raids, was keen as mustard to capitalize on the good PR from the little ship that could. Leading into the aftermath of the Empire Slipper incident, Drake sent the ship on a tour of 9 systems, as it was. Paint stripped off by the solar wind and debris, and the hull pockmarked by micrometeorites. Sadly, the good times came to an end as Drake's piracy-related controversies once again dominated the headlines, with a Hull D being downed by 4 unregistered Cutlass Blacks. The second incident that helped create the business case or the popularity for salvaging as a whole in the UEE, as well as for the Vulture itself, was the 2932 General Dog's Body incident. This ship, being an Aegis reclaimer, went down in the history books when the crew successfully executed the most profitable recovery operation in history. Thanks to the ship's scanners, drones, and probably a fair old whack of research and good luck, they tracked down a 22nd century colony ship adrift in deep space. The crew became millionaires overnight and minor celebrities to boot. And a payday like that naturally renewed interest in the oft-ignored or looked down upon task of space recovery and the associated salvaging craft. Drake, liking money, had a lightbulb moment. Sod Perkins, lead designer at the time, began refining the VLT-3 into a recovery spacecraft. Similar to when the testbed was stripped down for Empire Slipper's recovery, it was once again stripped back to basics. The armor and shield generators were ripped out, though the overall layout and functionality were mostly unchanged. The manipulator arms were swapped for autonomous recovery arms called Rippers, and were supported by a Lariat tractor beam array feeding into a Tomium scrapping platform. The crew count was dropped to 1 and a small sleeping area was added, with some amenities, as wrecks are rarely close to a convenient port. Much like the Cutlass Black launch, the Vulture's launch in 2938 was a huge success, with orders rapidly exceeding the Boreal plant's capacity. Within 8 months, 2 additional plants had to open due to demand, and marketing doffed its cap to the ship's heritage by stylizing its name with the V, L, and T being capitalized and the E being replaced by a 3. Naturally, what's a Drake ship without some controversy? With Drake being accused of over-promising results to inexperienced pilots. That being said, even the first-run Vultures had some notable successes, such as a long-lost Genesis Starliner and 2 Hull A's that had rammed each other and drifted from their expected routes. Much like the venerable Cutlasses, Drake wasn't one to rest on their laurels in terms of updating the ship. Whilst the first iteration of the Vulture was unarmed, this was in Drake's opinion rectified with the addition of a pair of size 1 repeaters in 2941, A second update to the ship occurred in 2949 when an extended cab was added which increased the storage from 8 to 12 SCU, and Drake has also offered subsequent revisions to the Vulture as an upgrade pack to the original ships. In an unexpected turn of events, considering how well Drake and the Navy typically get along, Drake must have been somewhat confused and somewhat surprised when the Navy lodged an order for 300 Vultures in 2943. They were delivered the next year and immediately started to work under the fleet support arm, cleaning up battles as a result of the war against the Vandal. This version of the Vulture has seen continued development, with large-scale battles against the Vandal predicted to only become more common in the future. As for her dimensions, she has a length of 33 meters, a beam of 16, a height of 9 meters, a combat speed of 165 meters a second, and a max speed of 1114. In terms of her components, she's got pretty much double-sized ones across the board bar the QT drive. Her weapons are dual-size ones, and her countermeasures are effectively your standard variety and numbers. In terms of her special features, she's running dual integrated size 1 scrapper beams, dual modes, basically a broader trawling mode and then a more powerful but more focused mode. If you've ever used a pressure washer, you get the drift. A lariat tractor rig, custom designed for the Vulture. This custom size 2 beam configuration makes it more efficient than setup's triplet size. A 12 SCU capacity cargo grid, and a long-haul capable cabin with a bed and minor amenities. Surprisingly enough, the old girl has a decent top speed for an industrial ship, as well as a pretty nice roll rate, with the ability to point her nose where you want to go without much bother. Where she is let down is her ability to come to a stop or change direction of travel once she's built up a fair head of steam. Or in other words, quite agile at your low speeds for precision maneuvering around wrecks, but increasingly less so the faster you go. She has 583 litres for QT fuel, at least as of the moment. As for her claim times, you'll find her standard claim time non-expedited is around 9 minutes. When expedited, sub 3, and the cost will be a bit less than 3000 UEC. In terms of the use cases and equivalents, this one was a bit of a challenge to find an equivalent real-world vehicle initially. But in the end, we got there with the Safeguard class rescue, repair and salvage ships. This class of ship serves with the United States Navy Combat Logistics Support Force. Here, it provides rescue, repair and salvage services to naval assets, as well as post-naval assault salvage operations. With a lot of ships of this nature, they generally wear a lot of hats, and the bigger they are, the more full-featured they are, and the bigger jobs they can undertake and, the longer they can stay in the field. PTC employs the Vulture in a similar manner to the UEE, through salvaging of post-combat beacon wrecks as well as post-major battles, such as the ever-increasingly frequent Ninetales blockades and the Xenothreat incursions. Whilst not as fully featured as the Reclaimer, it is a smaller target, more able to bob and weave through debris before delivering to a waiting hauler. I hope you all enjoyed this overview of one of the more storied ships in the game and her unconventionally quirky lore. Never let it be said that a Drake ship has a boring story to tell. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you're feeling generous and you want to see more of this sort of thing. And if you're thinking of having a crack at the game, check out the referral code in the description. It'll toss you a few thousand extra UEC to start off with. This is Bavar from PTC, signing off.